Here is one of the top 5 most attended presentations in 2020 at Horizon, a user conference dedicated to IBM Planning Analytics and TM1. Understanding what a change within IBM Planning Analytics impacts any TM1 application. Learn the future of time dimensions in the world of hierarchies, presented by Vincent Viau.
Okay, so let's get going. Hey guys, welcome back. I'm joined here today by Vincent from the Cubewise Code team. Vincent's going to be taking us through the future of time. What is time, right? Vincent,
what is time?
Yeah. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Vincent. Yeah, all yours.
All right. Thanks, Simon. Hi, everyone. I'm very happy today to talk to you about time, but specific time in for time dimensions in TM1. So one of the most common and important consideration when working with TM1 and designing cube is thinking about time dimensions, because most of cubes will have at least one time dimension. So that could be 1 year, 1 month, or 2 or multiple time dimensions. You could have weeks, days, any sort of combination. So that's kind of the most one of the important decisions that you will have to make when you design a cube. But there are some there are lots of changes that have been brought by Planning Analytics. So in this presentation, I will take you through 2 key important things that you should be aware of that might change the way you think about time dimensions with TM1. So let's start. So I split these dimensions into 3 sections. So first, I'm going just to remind you quickly about the best practice of time dimensions in the world of TM1. So when I say TM1, I mean TM1 10.2, so before Planning Analytics. Then I will explain you these 2 key things that you should be aware of when working with Planning Analytics, because I hope that everyone on this call today have upgraded to Planning Analytics, because TM1 10.2 is out of support since September. And last but not least, with these new features that that came with Planning Analytics, we'll be able to, once we understand them, we'll be able to define new best practices in the world of Planning Analytics. So we have Simon as a host, so he's monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions, please feel free to post them on the chat, and Simon will just let me know once there is a question. All right, let's try to keep it interactive. So yeah. So for this, I took a very common business case as a TM1 developer. So you need to load some monthly data. So you get some data. So in these examples, we have 7 columns. So version, year, month, stories, measures, and values. So to load data into a cube, you need to decide which dimensions your cube will have. So there are some dimensions which are quite obvious, like version dimensions. So that will be in most of your cubes, 1 version dimension, one, in this case, a store dimension, a release dimension, as 1 release can be in multiple stores, then a measure dimension. This is where we will store the data. Last but not least, we need to decide what are we going to do with these 2. So are we going to have 1 year dimension and 1 month dimension? So are we going to combine these 2 together with just 1 dimension? So this will depend in the business requirements. So there are some important considerations that you need to take into account when designing your cube. So first, you need to check with your users if your users are relying on a rolling time period. So that's kind of very important. If they need, they heavily need like kind of last 12 months, next 24 months, this type of rolling time periods will be difficult to achieve if you have 1 year and 1 month dimension as separate dimensions. And will your cube be sharing data with other cubes? So that would be easier for you if when developing, if you're sharing, firstly, it would be easier for you if your cubes are sharing the same dimensions, and also in terms of memory, as each dimensions is loaded when the server starts. The less dimension, the better is for your server. So it's a good practice to try to share dimensions across your cubes. Another thing to take into account is the level of efforts when accessing data, because now with TM1 there are lots of different ways for your users to access data. So they could use cube views, they could use architect perspective, TM1 web. Now with the new generation tools such as Analytics for Excel, Analytics Workspace, Arc, Applico UX, or Cognos Analytics, all these different tools have kind of different requirements or specifications that you need to be aware of. Like for instance, if your users are heavily relying on cube views and they want to do rolling time periods, so that will be difficult to achieve if you just have a cube view to be able to show the last 12 months or next 12 months with just 1 year and 1 month dimensions. And also, it's always important to take into account to try to find a good balance between usability and maintenance, because if you have a combined year and month dimensions, and then you need to add a new year, it means that you need to add the new 12 months and all the related attribute information, such as next period, previous period, etc. Because if you have just 1 year and 1 month dimensions, if you need to add 1 year, it's just need to add 1 element. So that would be much more convenient for you. All right, so in the world of Tier 1 Tender 2, you cannot go wrong if you use a separate year and month dimension. So it provides easier year-on-year comparisons, and it enables the users to easily do a related data spreading, and also it requires less maintenance. So let's have a look about, so based on this use case here, I created a cube. So in this example with a year and month as separate dimensions. So let's look into Arc. So I'm using Arc for this demo. So Arc is a developer tool, which is actually with the latest version 2.1. It is currently, all the end users features are free. So all most of the features that I will show today, like the cube viewers, subset editor, are free to use. So you can download Arc from our website. So you can search for Arc for TM1 download, and you will find the link, and you can download and use Arc for free. All the end users license, all the end users features that I will show now are free to use. So if you want to do if you want to have access to developer features, you will need to purchase a subscription. But just want to point out that from this week, there is a kind of a promotion, like Arc usually comes with a 3 months trial period for the developer license. And if you start the license from today until the end of the week, you get 6 months. So yeah, if you want to get a 6 months trial license for the developer features, just download Arc and start your trial now. So you have 1 week to do this. If not, you will get just 3 months. All right, so let's have a look at the cube. In the cube sales, we have a version dimension, a year, a month, store, release, and sales measure. So let's have a look at a cube view. So here in our cube viewer, there are lots of cool features, and one of them is to swap dimension. So in this example, we have the month dimension here. We want to swap it with the one on columns, which is the all months. And then we just want to keep, let's keep the all months. So you can just right click everywhere and you get different options, which is very handy. So you can see you don't have to open the subset editor each time you want to change elements on rows, columns. So this is kind of the basic forecasting cube that you will need if your users are required to input some monthly data. You will end up having a year dimension and a month dimension, because that's most of the users will need to be able to compare easily the months versus the year, like having the years on rows and months on columns. All right, so but now what if your users are not relying on the rolling time periods and your users are mainly accessing TM1 through a cube views? This is where you might end up building a reporting cube with a combined year and month dimensions. Like for example, here, this is the one I bought. This is the one I built. So we have the sales period where we have a period dimension with just one, the default hierarchy here. So let's have a look at this. Let's have a look at this cube. So here the difference is that we have a combined year and month dimensions. So you can see that we have different type of rollups. So first is this one, the default one, where we have the leaf, the year months, which roll up to months, and then all months. But there are lots of different consolidations that we can use, such as the one for the years, like that. So you can see that if you want to use the years, you will only be able to choose either the years or the months. So in a cube views, you cannot choose, you cannot have the years on rows and months growth if you have a combined year and month dimension. So this is with TM1. But now with Planning Analytics, so let's see what changed with Planning Analytics that can help us in this situation. Being able to have, being able easily to do a year-on-year comparison and to be able to have a rolling time periods in the same cube view. All right, let me go back to the slides. And we are here. So what changed in Planning Analytics? So thanks to the IBM team and Hubert, there has been a lot of improvements from TM1 to Planning Analytics. There are two key things that change in Planning Analytics that you need to be aware of is the difference between elements and members and hierarchies. So let's have a look first as the difference between elements and members. So with, if you're using the, we call it the legacy tools, such as Architect, Perspective, and TM1 Web, there is no difference between this example where we have a year months dimension, where you have two types of rollups. The first one is the year months, which roll up to months. And then the second one in light blue, you have the year months, which roll up to years. So if you open this dimension in Architect or Perspective, and then for Architect and Perspective, this 2017 Jan will be the same, and for TM1 Web. When you request the data from a DBRW function in Perspective, the DBRW function will ask the data for 2017 Jan inside the dimension period. It does not care about the parents. But what changed with this new generation tools, such as Planning Analytics for Excel, Planning Analytics Workspace, Arc, and Applico UX, these new tools are using, to connect to TM1, they're using the TM1 REST API. And the TM1 REST API is relying on MDX. So with MDX, when you want to get the data for one specific element, it is actually, you need to go to the member. And the member is defined by the member unique name, which looks like this. So first you get the dimension, then the hierarchy, and then all the parents. So you can see that this 2017 Jan, there are two members. I would think that there is only one element, but there are actually two members. So maybe let's have a look at the cube view. Maybe it will make more sense. So we have this period dimensions where we have the months here. So I will grab Jan 2017 from below Jan, and then I'm going to get Jan 2017 Jan from 2017. So I'm going to grab these two elements. Let's click OK. So now Arc is requesting the data. So you can see the data the data is the same as is getting the same data. But to get to this data, to the REST API, Arc needs, and such as Planning Analytics for Excel, it needs the member unique name like this. So you will see the first one is all years 2017, 2017 Jan, and the second one is all months Jan, 2017 Jan. So what you need to remember here is that it is very important. Like you need to be careful when you reference a leaf element in your reports, because in this example, if you reference 2017 Jan from which is below in the years, below 2017, and then you decide to remove this rollup, to remove this rollup 2017, you just want the months. Your element, your member, so your member 2017 Jan will disappear, will not be available. So it means that your report will fail. So we had a few situations where some customers built some dashboards based on leaf elements, with leaf elements having multiple parents, and then the one parent was deleted or cleaned, maybe it was an odd one, and then the reports failed because the member unique name was referencing to the old parents. So I hope this is clear, but what you need to remember is that try to have each leaf element, if you have a clean dimension, each leaf element should have only one parent in each hierarchy. So that's what we're going to define now. What is a hierarchy? So hierarchies have been introduced with planning analytics. So what we used to call a hierarchy in TM1 was simply a specific roll-up of CNN elements. So what I was showing just previously with a dimension with the consolidation years and consolidation months in the same dimensions, we were used to call this hierarchy, but it's actually just a set of roll-up of CNN elements. What you should call hierarchies now, it's a new, it's an intermediate level between dimensions and elements. So as you can see on the right, in the structure of the cube, so you have the cube, then you have the dimensions, and the dimensions are now a container of hierarchies, which then contain the elements, and then the values are attached to the elements. So there are two key benefits by using hierarchies. First is the flexibility. So as I will show you in an instant, I will show you now with hierarchies, you can add as many hierarchies as you want in your, for one dimension. You don't have to rebuild your cube like you had to do before. If you need a new axis for analysis and you need a new dimension, you will need to delete your cube and reload the data. So now with hierarchies, you can just add as many hierarchies as you want. And it has also greater performance. So adding a new hierarchy does not decrease the performance on your query speed. So what impacts the query speed? So the time that your users are querying the data is the number of dimensions. So the more dimensions you add to your cube, the more steps you could say TM1 needs to do to go to the value. So the less dimension, the better. So less dimension you have, and it will be faster for users to get data. But it will not necessarily reduce the memory consumption, because each hierarchy needs to be loaded at the startup. So the memory might increase, but the query performance will not be impacted. All right, so let's have a look at how hierarchy looks. So I built another cube, which looks like this one, the sales period R. So I call it H for hierarchies. So what is different with this cube here is you can see in dimension. So it looks like the previous one. We only have 5 dimensions, but what is different now is that you have multiple hierarchies below the period H. So period H is the name of the dimensions. When you create a new hierarchy, the default hierarchy will be created with the same name, per H. You will get a technical hierarchy, which is called leaves, where TM1 store all the leaf elements, and then you can have all different hierarchies that you can build. So let's have a look in a cube view how it looks now. So you can see on the left, even if we have only 5 dimensions, in a cube view, it looks like you have all hierarchies are kind of dimensions that you can drag and drop anywhere you want. So in this case, we just have one period H dimensions, but you can see that here we can swap the period H, we can swap with the measure, and we will be able to have the default hierarchy with it per month, having the years hierarchy on rows and having the months on columns. So being able to, with one dimension, to cross the data from the same dimension. So, and now, so here we have with one dimension and hierarchies, we can have the year-on-year comparisons. That was the first requirement. And the second requirement was being able to use some rolling time periods. So we can see we built a few other hierarchies like the last 12 months. So we can swap this one with our default hierarchies, and you will be able to see, to get the last 12 months consolidations and compare it with the previous years. We have also the current months, so that will be very handy. Being able to see, so we see the current month is August. So below August, we have each month for each year. And then if we close this one, so we just keep this one, we'll be able to compare the current month's value versus in all the different years. So that will be very handy. So you can see with the cube view, you have all the flexibility that the users will need in terms of year-on-year comparisons and in terms of rolling time periods. So now let's talk about how to build, or maybe I forgot to mention. So one nice side effect of working with hierarchies is you can see that when you build a new hierarchy, that's all the hierarchies, there is this technical hierarchies, which is called leaves, that is created by TM1. So this hierarchy store all the leaves. So it means, so a nice side effect is that when you update a hierarchy, you don't have to unwind this hierarchy. You don't need to be scared or worried about losing data, because all the leaves elements are still stored in the leaves hierarchy. So if you want, you can delete all these elements here, but you are not deleting them from the dimension. You're just deleting them from the hierarchy, and the leaf elements are shared across all hierarchies. So even if you delete them from here, they will still be available here. So the day you will not have it will not impact your data, as the leaves elements will still be available in the leaves hierarchy. So if you want to delete an element for good, you will need to delete it from the leaves as well. So that's what the function does when you do an hierarchy element deletes. It removes it from the hierarchy. All right, so now let's talk about how to build hierarchy. So you could build hierarchy using TI. So you can write a new TI as the dim period build hierarchy. All right, so you can start by building your hierarchy. So it would just require a bit of time. So to build a hierarchy, if you're not familiar with hierarchies, but you're familiar with dimensions, hierarchies are using pretty much, there's a one-to-one comparison, there's a one-to-one match between functions that are used by hierarchies and used by dimensions. So for instance, if you look for a create, dimension create, there will be a function called hierarchy create. So if we go down, you will see hierarchy create here, which takes dimension and hierarchy name. So it's very easy. So if we look for insert elements, so you're probably familiar with the dimension element insert function. If you want to insert an element to a hierarchy, you can search and find the hierarchy element insert function. So that will be, it's not too complex, but it might be time consuming, as you will need to loop through the years, create the months, and what takes even more time is all the information about the attributes. Because if you have combined year and month dimensions, there are lots of attributes that you might need for your calculation, such as previous year, next year, different aliases. So all this information, especially if your dimension has been already built, you want to add a new year, you need to add all this information as well. So you could use Excel to prepare all this data and then use a process to load this data into TM1. Or if you are lucky enough to have ARC, or at least using it as a trial, we built a time dimension plugin. So what this plugin does, it helps creating time dimension, and especially it's very helpful with hierarchies. So what you can do here, you can choose the type of dimension that you want to build, either day, weeks, months, or year. So in this example, let's call it period. I think it's in, let's call it just period horizon, like a new dimension. You can change, you can set the start date, end date, then you can choose hierarchy. So this is where it is quite interesting, where you can choose. So this is where you will define the format of your elements, the leaf. So for instance, if you want just months like this, or if you want a short description or long description, so this is how you can change the way your elements will be created. And then what you can do, you can also, for calendar fiscal year, so if you need a hierarchy for a fiscal year, you can also choose when your fiscal year starts. Sometimes we have some customers, the fiscal year starts in May. So you can click like this and you can see the H1 is for half year one. So you can see H1 and quarter one. So this is how the consolidation are created. So you can choose here, and then you can go to alias. So this is all the aliases that will be created. So you can easily change, as we did before, for all different levels. You can change the formats. Then we have all the attributes. So for instance, if you need the previous year -2 or the next year +2, the same for months, you can add more attributes here. And then you can just review. And then, so you can see that the dimension hasn't been created. And what the plugin is going to do, so it's going to create the dimension. So it does not need to create a TI. It's all using the REST API. So it creates for you the dimension. So let's just wait a few more seconds. So you can see it's going to create one dimension with 12 hierarchies. So you can see it's going step by step. So one hierarchy at a time. And it's almost done. There's 3 more to go. And it takes a bit of time because it's populate also, as you can see, the attribute values for all all months and all hierarchies. So, and that should be it. So let's have a look. And now we should have our period dimension that's similar. And you can see that this one we have here and then a long description and leaf elements as leaf elements. You will be able to see all the different hierarchies here. For instance, if you want the years, so that will be the years hierarchies. And here you will be able to see all the different attributes which have been pre-populated for you. So you can use this plugin to create a new dimension, or you can also use it to add a new year to an existing year and month dimension. So you just need to be careful about the format of your elements, so that they need to be the same as the one which are already in your dimension.
Hey Vincent,
yes,
we're just about out of time.
Yeah,
I have a question from Cormac in the chat, and he asks if we've got existing TIs editing dimensions, will the syntax need to be changed if we or rebuilt if we bring in hierarchies?
Yes, because if you want to create new hierarchies, you need to use the new, as I was showing you, the new functions. So for instance, this is if you are creating a time dimension using TI function. So this is the function that you will use, dimension insert or component add. So now if you want to do the same, but with hierarchies, instead of these two functions, you will need to use the hierarchy element insert and then the hierarchy element component add. That's it. But the logic should be the same. You just need to change the function name and just add the hierarchy. But you can see that the rest of the function is similar as the one that you're used to.
All right. Nice one. All right. Well, thanks very much, Vincent, for that.
Welcome.
Really great. I guess you've got another session coming up later on, right? So
yes,
this is the last people will see of you, right? So be sure to check out Vincent's session later on. Up next is 2 different sessions, kind of depending on what kind of mood you're in. So we've got a customer session with one of our clients at Ardex and their Applico FPM solution. And we've also got quite a technical session with regards to TM1 Pi connecting to Power BI, which is a pretty good session, and one of the guys from the UK team is actually running that. I've been told to say as well, there's some trivia happening. So if you go onto the agenda and just type TM1 trivia, it's happening in like 2 or 3 hours. So if anyone's keen on that, get involved in that. But yeah, great. All right. Thanks very much, Vincent, again, and we'll see you guys soon.